Welcome back to my channel, guys. Thank you very much for watching my videos for all this while, and I'm really overwhelmed with the kind of comments and the kind of individual messages what you guys are sending me. Thank you so much for making me keep this channel very lively. I really hope that you guys are very safe, stay at home. This is the COVID-19, the whole world is talking about the same language, so I really wish that you guys stay home safe. And people who have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe so that you will not miss any kind of notification whenever I upload a new video. Please ensure that you also hit the bell icon so that you do not miss any notifications whenever I upload a new video. Let's get into the subject, guys. Today we're going to talk about exposure triangle. Okay? Detailed video about ISO, a detailed video about shutter speed, and a detailed video about aperture as well. So what I would actually personally recommend is you guys can have a look at those videos which can give you a clear idea of how things work individually, right? And when you watch this particular video of exposure triangle, this will give you a complete overview, and you must be able to take your camera and immediately start taking on to the subject you want to take of your choice. Let's get on to the subject right now. Welcome back, guys. We're going to talk about exposure triangle in this particular video, as I told you. So you need to understand the basic definition of aperture, shutter speed and ISO. What an aperture does, aperture defines the amount of light that can enter into your camera. Okay, your shutter speed defines the amount of time the shutter is open, the light get into the camera. Okay, and your ISO defines the sensitivity of the sensor in the camera. Everything depends on the light which is required for the image to process in your camera, but individually they have different purposes by themselves. Okay, you need to understand the exposure triangle to make better pictures using photography. Okay, what's the basics of aperture? The smaller the f number, the amount of light which can enter the camera is more, right? That's just simple. What can the aperture define, right? Your aperture helps to define the depth of field of a particular image. Okay, if you want to take a close-up image with the background blur, this is where your aperture really helps. And if you wanted to get everything in focus, your digital cameras have got modes like portrait mode, which can give you background blurs, and then your landscape mode, right? So these are all kind of an aperture priority modes which can help you to take pictures the way you want it. Okay, what the shutter speed does. Now the shutter speed is something called, you have slow shutter speeds, you have faster shutter speeds, right? Anything below 1/25th of a second is going to be a slow shutter speed. Anything more than 1/25th of a second is going to be a fast shutter speed. I've explained in the previous shutter speed videos. You can really watch it. But if you're going to go for a slow shutter speed, you need to have a tripod. If you're not going to have a tripod, you will get a camera shake, and your images are going to look very bad, right? So if you want to take wildlife photographies, high-speed photographies for research, in a lot of things, your high-speed photographies really works. Capture things in a very fast moment, and it also helps in understanding the study of the speed in terms of a lot of research activities. Okay, this is why your shutter speed really works. So where your ISO helps is it's more used for low light photography, and it is used for night photographies. So if you're going to take in a bright sunlight, you're not going to use a higher ISO. You'll obviously have it for 100 ISO and take shots. Where you have, suppose you're taking a picture in the evenings, and where your light condition is very poor, and you're not able to depend too much on your flash, right? So that is where you increase your ISO to make your picture composition better. So I want to explain you guys something on basic things of ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. Okay, so you're talking about aperture, right? Each f-stops lets twice the amount of light with the next f-stop. Okay, likewise your shutter speed opens twice the amount of light of the previous setting. Okay, the similar way your ISO is the same way, right? For example, you go from 100 to 200, it just doubles the amount of light that enters into your camera sensor. All these three settings, your aperture, ISO, and the shutter speed have got something called as half values and third values. Okay, let me just show you with a small image of how it works. It depends on your camera model, it depends on your lens model, the kind of lens what you're using, the focal of the length, these values are defined. Let me explain you with an example which I've taken in the field. So guys, this example is basically for demonstration purpose alone. I've taken this clicks using a tripod. My light conditions were poor, so I had to go for a higher ISO. Okay, if you look at this particular image, I have an ISO as 400 with an aperture of 4 and shutter speed as 1/15th of a second. Please have a look at the left hand side top corner where I'm explaining about the exposure triangle and how the images have been clicked. Okay, so the next picture what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the aperture as constant and shift the other two variables, okay, and to show you how the image is going to look like. So to get a similar kind of an image with the same aperture setting, I'm now having the ISO as 1600, moved 2 stops, and accordingly I also have to move the shutter speed as well. Okay, let's have a look at another picture with the same aperture. Now in this particular image I'm going to shift the ISO for 6400, 2 stops, and accordingly if you see that to get a similar kind of an output, I have to make my shutter speed also as 1/250th of a second. Okay, so when you have the ISO more, the light is getting more in, so accordingly you will have to increase the shutter speed so that your light enters into the camera relatively lesser. Right, so let's have another example with the change in the aperture from 4 to 11, and let's have the ISO as constant in this particular example and have a click and see. Okay, so since the aperture is shifted 3 stops from 4 to 11, I had to shift the shutter speed also to 1/30th of a second from 1/250th of a second to get the similar kind of a picture. Okay, so if you look at this particular picture with 6400 ISO, there's a lot of grains which you can visibly see that in this particular image. Let's have another example by having the aperture as constant and making the ISO as 1600, reducing 2 stops. Accordingly, I'll also have to make the shutter speed as 1/8 of a second. So let's make another example. Change in ISO on shutter speed alone. Let's have the aperture as 11 itself. So if I have to shift the ISO to 200, so I'll have to go for 1.3 seconds to get a similar kind of an quality. Actually this picture looks good because your aperture is also okay. You have a very decent ISO. Since I had a tripod, I was able to go beyond 1 second. Okay, it's 1.3 second image. Now let's make another click by having the aperture as constant and changing the ISO as 100, and if you see I moved 1 stop, accordingly I will also have to double the light experience by 2.5 seconds. Let's make another quick click by having the ISO as constant now and shift the aperture as 22. Okay, so if I shift the aperture as 22 from 11, I will have to again increase the shutter speed, which is about 10 seconds to get a similar kind of quality with 100 ISO. So let me show you a comparative view of how these images, the exposure triangles, which will give you an idea of how these pictures have been taken. This should really help you to understand the way the exposure triangle works. So hope this gives you a good idea of understanding of how much ever you change the 3 pillars, right? The three values, your image is going to kind of remain similar, right? You get it? That's the example what I showed you. Now let me again go to the field and show you an a live example of how the exposure triangle works.
So if you look at the light condition right now, it's pretty dim. So the first thing which is to be considered is the ISO. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is ISO as about 400 ISO, because the light is very dim. I'm having a Canon camera. Let me just first go to the ISO and make it as 400 so that I get a pretty decent image. Okay, that's the first thing to do it. Understand the lighting condition of what you're taking, and then based on that you fix the ISO. That's the first thing which you do it. So right now, if I had come a little earlier during the bright sun, I would have wanted to keep the ISO as 100, not more than that. Okay, it's always better to keep the ISO the lowest possible for you to get a better image quality. I'm going to try to capture this particular image which you are seeing. I've already kept the ISO as 400. Let me have the shutter speed as more than 125 of a second so that I do not get any kind of a shake in my pictures whatever I take. Okay, just checking if it's in autofocus. Image stabilizer is on, everything is on. Yeah. Okay. If you look at the image, f22 is burned out. Is burned out, okay? So which means that the shutter speed has to reduce. I'll go for 100 and maybe change my aperture as f4. Let's try it now. It's still burned out because, see, if you look at this particular image right now, the image has come, okay, but the problem is since the lighting is very less, I've kept the shutter speed as 100, which means that I can't go beyond that. If I go beyond that, I'm going to get a camera shake for sure. So I'll have to let me increase the aperture as 1/25 a second to keep myself very safe. And then I have no other choice, because if f4 is the largest aperture setting which I can open it, okay? So I'll have to increase intensity by, let me keep it as ISO as 800 and now try it. It's kind of okay. I was able to get the picture, but not the complete clarity of it. So let me increase the ISO again as 3200 and see how it takes. Wow, this is good. This image is good. So now you kind of understand what exactly that you want to take it. So this setting is, I had to go for an ISO of 3200 with a focal point of 4 and the shutter speed of 125.
Okay guys, so hope this example really helped you to make you understand in real time how things work using the exposure triangle. Okay, so hope you guys really like this particular video, a learning of how the exposure triangles works. You guys must be all set to go and take the photographs the way you want it. Keep experimenting guys, you will really enjoy it. This is amazing. You have a camera, you need to experiment. You just can't have a DSLR in your hand and stay idle. All right, people who have not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. Please leave your comments below, which will help us to understand if you have any questions that I can answer to you guys. And to like the video if you really enjoyed it, and to hit the bell icon so you do not miss any notifications at all, and subscribe to my channel if you're not done it right now. Okay, thank you guys for watching my video all this while. Catch you soon in another video.